Deputations by appointment, and we have 4. The first is from the Banks Peninsula Zone Implementation Committee, and because it's a relatively simple perhaps item on the agenda, we'll take the item immediately after you guys have submitted and then come to the deputations by Quieter Please and the Car Club and the Speedway Association. Okay, welcome. I think you probably understand the rules now, but you get a 10-minute time and that includes questions. You okay?
Okay, I'll put down my hat today. It's a community hat, not a community board hat. I'm a community person today. And with me, beside me, I've got Kevin Simock, who's part of the Zone Committee, and on my left here I've got Nick Rignott, who's a planner with Environment Canterbury. This process has been going on for a number of years now, and the officer's report on page 301 outlines some of those things. But the Canterbury Water Management Strategy started about in 2005 by the Canterbury Mayoral Forum with the philosophy of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy to create a formal process, a format where solutions to these problems can be conceived and implemented by the community with support from the councils. So we've continued to move through that process, working together, bringing knowledge and skills to the table. And the Zone Committee is a joint committee between ECAN and the Christchurch City Council, and I have some more of my players back here behind us supporting us. We have produced an action plan for Banks Peninsula, the Zone Implementation Program, and then over the last 18 months we have actually been presenting a zipper, which will, from this, a plan will be written to go into the Land and Water Regional Plan around the Little River Wairira catchment. So we have an action plan with that's got a number of recommendations to the City Council and ECAN on the issues. It has been adopted by the zipper, has been adopted by the Environment Canterbury Commissioners, and today we're asking you to come forward and adopt our zipper as well. So Kevin will talk through the action plan, but just could I acknowledge the contribution of the City Council staff, Peter Kingsbury and his team, that has spent considerable hours with us to come to the fruition of this process. So, Kevin.
Okay, as Tam has said, the action plan, the zipper, which is zip addendum, has 29 elements in the action plan, and they're covered in pages 17 to 35. Our reason for being here quite clearly is to ask for your endorsement of our plan. When we presented the ZIP last year, one of the things that we noted was the uniqueness of our ZIP relative to other ZIPs in the greater Environment Canterbury environment. And the uniqueness was that our ZIP requires a lot of City Council input, a lot more than the other 9 zones. That trend's continued with what we have here in our Wairira addendum. So why do this? Why be involved? The key reasons are that there are community benefits, both local to the Little River community and to the wider community. There are also environment benefits for our lifetimes and obviously for those lifetimes after ours. And that's the community, that's the Runanga perspective in particular. I just want to highlight a few aspects of the ZIP that might have or do have significant City Council involvement. From a local community perspective, one of the key issues in our engagement process, and that's a process that's been extensive through the development of this addendum, was the flooding in Little River. We're all aware of that. We have engaged in research as to the causes of that flooding and in methods to mitigate that flooding. Our addendum asks for the city plan to buy into some actions which will help with that mitigation process. We're looking for city plan and district plan changes or responses in areas such as drainage, such as the planning rules in terms of development in the risk areas and in the areas that contribute to that flooding. And we're looking for something a little bit unique in terms of what sits in Banks Peninsula at the moment, and that's the establishment of a drainage rating district for Little River, an idea that's been put forward over the last 30 years, but now has more engagement probably than it's had at any other time in that period. From the wider community perspective, the lake Te Roto Oro Wairua offers opportunities for contact recreation. But it can only do that if we can manage its health better. And that health is quite dependent on the phosphorus content within that lake. Currently, there's about 11.3 tonnes a year of phosphorus entering the lake, about 1.7 tonnes a year vacating the lake. There's a phosphorus build-up that contributes to problems with the health of the lake, in particular with the growth of organisms that are not healthy for human or for animals, or even for the flora and fauna around the lake edge. We want help with trying to reduce that level to something like 1.8 tonnes over the next 20 years. How can City Council contribute to that? The flood mitigation is one part, because that limits the sediment that comes into the lake carrying phosphorus, but there's also issues of sewerage in the Little Rivers area. We're asking for the City Council's input to a high-level treatment plant that actually includes the removal of phosphorus as part of the process to limit the amount of phosphorus available in that environment to be transported into the lake environment. We're looking for upgrade of the infrastructure in the area to again reduce the input into the sewerage system, which in turn reduces the phosphorus development. We're looking for help with water storage and water efficiency measures for the local community. Those things can be incorporated within district plans. The P process, as we call it, the phosphorus issue, needs a lot of further research. That research has been ongoing in the last 2 years at the request of the Zone Committee as part of our work on the ZIP, with ECAN, with City Council resources inputted into it already, but it needs to continue further. And that partnership needs to be ECAN, City Council, Runanga, and the other affected environments such as ourselves, the Zone Committee. We want you to buy into that research process and support us going forward in developing techniques to better improve the health of the Lake Wairua itself and of the Wairua catchment. Let's reduce the P in the lake. At the same time, let's improve the flooding mitigation in the city and the Little River Township, the health of the rivers, and the use of the land in the Wairua catchment. It requires an engaged partnership of the parties. We request that City Council show their engagement initially today by endorsing the presented ZIP addendum for the Wairua catchment. We now welcome questions if you have any.
Thank you for the presentation and thank you for the work that you're doing. I guess at a high level, when the water zone committees and the whole water management strategy was set up, I guess one of my sceptical concerns was that it'd very much be about economic development at the expense of the environment. From the reports that you've got, can you just kind of give me a bit of a high-level understanding around how the economic development and the environmental effects are working in balance, or you know, what safeguards have been put in place or being recommended to be put in place in regards to the environmental protection? Because the feel I get from the report is it is quite focused on environmental protection as being kind of the core assumption, but I think it would be good just to get from you guys a bit more of an understanding about what those trade-offs have been.
I just want to get your question clear. Are you saying a trade-off between effectively limiting development at the expense or at the benefit of improving the environment?
Yeah, I think controlling the negative environmental consequences of the economic development opportunities.
And I think that's the key balance, isn't it? If you look at, you can take things as cause and response, or you can take these things as let's be a little bit proactive and develop the systems before we allow the development. And that's the approach we've taken. For example, if you put in a high-level sewage treatment facility, you offer the opportunity for greater development. If we put in high quality, and it actually is only a change in the way we're managing the land environment in terms of flood mitigation, and perhaps lift the level of one bridge, we actually open up the Little River Township for greater development. So the two don't have to be negative to each other, but the two have to work together to actually enable both to prosper. And that's the approach that we're taking. That's why, in fact, this committee has engaged so much in research, both with the community. We've spent time with people who have been in that community for 60 years, talking to them about what the environment was like 60 years ago when they were kids growing up. We've spent time with researchers talking about what caused the floods. We've then spent time with other researchers saying, what have you done in other environments that have actually improved the flooding things? And it's simple things like willows growing in the environment. We thought the solution was to take them out in the past. Now they say, that causes the banks to collapse and cause sediment problems. So we're trying to look at ways of improving on that. Now, out of all of that work comes the opportunity for greater development, because now you're managing the environment in a way that is prosperous for both. Does that answer your question?
Where does the phosphorus come from?
Naturally out of the soils, from the septic tanks, from a number of ways, from the birds. There's a number of ways, but the soil has got naturally got a lot of phosphorus in it.
As does the lake bed. It sits at the moment with quite a high phosphorus content, which kind of gets whipped up with different storms and obviously wind effects. And that's why, in fact, the lake level control is quite important, because you can mitigate those effects at the lake floor depending on the depth of the lake. You mitigate the temperature of the lake. There's a lot of complicated factors that all contribute together to create the P problem. But as Pam said, the fundamental source of the phosphorus is that the natural soil over on the peninsula has a high phosphorus content. If we can limit the movement of that soil into our lakes, then we can mitigate the phosphorus problem.
Thank you very much, Liz. Just to make it helpful for you, we'll do that item now so that you're here for the consideration of it, rather than have you.
We look forward to your help.
So item 17.